Hello everyone, this lesson is on operations using scientific notation. You should have already watched my video on what scientific notation is, the intro. Now we're going to talk about operations, namely two operations, multiplication and division. We're going to first start with how to multiply our scientific notations and make it become a scientific notation solution. So I have steps here on this side that I would like to follow as we're doing them and keep them in mind when we are doing division afterwards. Over here I have two brackets obviously being multiplied. And over here I say that the first step that you should do is to multiply your numbers together first. So don't even worry about your 10 to the power of exponents first. Let's multiply 3.54 times 82 first and foremost. And when we do that, we would get 290.28. Now, step one is done, so check that one off. The next step that we should do is we need to keep our base 10 here and add our exponents, right? Because we're multiplying and we have the same base. So we have the same base 10, we keep our base, and we add our exponents. And 3 plus 4 is 7. Okay, so scrolling down here, I say, check if answer is in scientific notation. If it's not, change it. So over here, check to see if it's in scientific notation. Well, no, this answer is actually not in scientific notation. For it to be in scientific notation, I would want my decimal to be right here, right? Because I want a number and then a decimal. And to do that, I have to move it over 2 times to the left. And so instead of having this 290.28, I'm going to have 2.9028 times 10 to the power of a positive 2, not forgetting my 10 to the power of 7. And finally, in my step 4, regroup base 10s if necessary. So if your answer was not in scientific notation, you had to change it to scientific notation, we have to regroup our base 10s. So keeping our decimal, that's not doing any harm right now, and adding our exponents over the 10, our final answer is 2.9028 times 10 to the power of 9. And that's for multiplication, and these steps here work for any multiplication of scientific notation. So now let's talk about division. Division is pretty much the same thing as multiplication. We start first with our numbers. So like 1 numbers, 2 base 10s, 3 solution in scientific notation. So let's try this. Let's look at our numbers. I have 5.3 and I have 21. So 5.3 divided by 21, in yellow here, gives me 0.252. So our numbers are done. Now let's look at our base 10s. We are subtracting our exponents because we have the same base 10. We do minus 3, or negative 3 minus 5, and negative 3 minus 5 is just negative 8. So base 10s are done. Now, our solution needs to be in scientific notation. Is it in scientific notation right now? It is not, in fact. In order for it to be in scientific notation, our decimal has to be next to this 2. So we're going to move it over once to the right, which means that instead of 0.252, we're going to get 2.52 times 10 to the power of negative 1, right, because it's a small number that we're turning into scientific notation, not forgetting our 10 to the power of negative 8 from the original work. And my step 4, which isn't here but in the last one, is regroup base 10s if necessary, right? Because sometimes it may not be because we were already in scientific notation, but in this case it is actually necessary. So 2.52 stays here, not hurting anybody. Negative 1 plus a negative 8 is 10 to the negative 9. And that's it for division. And now let's look at something for mixed. When we have something that's mixed like this, I always tell my students, do what you think is the easiest first. And for a lot of them, this part here would have been the easiest to do first. Okay, so we're going to do the top first, and then we're going to worry about our division. So remembering our steps, our first step is to always multiply our numbers. So if we multiply our numbers, and getting a calculator out here because I'm not very good at mental math of decimals, 2.83 times 5.82 is approximately 16. Well, not approximately, actually exactly 16.4706 times, we check our base 10s, 5 plus 3 is 8, all over 3.4 times 10 to the 6. Now, I know some of you are wondering, but what about this here? This number here is not in scientific notation. We should fix it. I always tell my students, wait till the very end. Just simplify everything and then worry about your scientific notation at the end. So now, again, we have division. So basically what we did here, we're doing here. So if we do 16.4706 divided by 3.4, getting my calculator out here, I get approximately, and I'm going to actually round this to 4.844, although it does go on for a while. And then I do 10 to the power of 8 divided by 10 to the power of 6, which is 8 minus 6, so 10 to the power of 2. And if you check, is this here in scientific notation? It is. So there's no need to change anything. There's no need to regroup any base 10s because it is the same. So just to recap this lesson, you should now know how to multiply scientific notations. Remember, numbers first, then exponents after. You should also know how to divide. Remember, numbers first, exponents after. And then you should know how to do both at the same time or one after the other. Always remembering to check that your solution is in scientific notation. If it's not, make sure, like we did here, to change it into scientific notation and to regroup your base 10s at the very end. And that's it.